We have lots to discuss in today's video, including recapping the Four Nation Face-Off tournament, which came to a close last night with Canada beating the U.S. in overtime. We'll discuss the logistics of the tournament, some of the numbers coming out on the ratings, and what might happen here in the future around best-on-best hockey. Plus, we got some big updates as well around the Vancouver Canucks. We have a big signing involving Kevin Lankinen. The future of Thatcher Demko and Brock Boeser very much up in the air. We're also going to discuss the future of Mikko Rantanen in Carolina. Could another trade come about before the deadline? And we also have an update on Blues goalie Jordan Binnington. He was a Canadian hero last night, but could the Blues sell high and take advantage of his performance at the Four Nation Face-Off tournament to help retool the Blues? We'll discuss that, plus news from the waiver wire and a bunch of injury and roster moves coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Of course, the Four Nation Face-Off tournament came to a close last night. NHL action is set to resume again tomorrow. It's hard to imagine the level of strong play and intensity in those Four Nation games to go back to regular NHL regular season games. It's going to seem a little weird, and it might seem like the quality of the product might not be quite what we just got used to here, but it was a phenomenal best-on-best tournament. It could always be better, of course, with more nations and more countries involved. We're less than a year away from the 2026 Olympic Games, which will feature these NHL stars, plus a lot more that we didn't get to see in this tournament, given that there'll be a lot more countries involved. But it was a phenomenal tournament. We'll start with recapping what happened. Of course, I did put out a video late, really into the early morning hours after the tournament ended last night. Of course, I'm an East Coaster, so even an hour behind the Eastern time. So obviously it was really late here by the time the game finished. I got the video done and uploaded to the channel. But Canada pulls off a stunning overtime victory, 3-2 over the United States. Connor McDavid had his moment with the golden goal. 15 years apart from Sidney Crosby's moment at the 2010 Olympics, of course, on home soil. I don't know that it's, this McDavid goal is probably going to be right up there with, one of the third or fourth highest, most famous Canadian goals of all time. You look back to Paul Henderson in the 72 7th series. You've got the Crosby overtime goal to win gold on home soil in the 2010 Olympics. Muriel Lemieux, Canada Cup 87, be right up there. Then you get the McDavid goal. It's crazy. A lot of people today are also giving a lot of flack to Austin Matthews, which I don't know is completely fair, to be honest. Of course, Matthews was out against McDavid on the face-off, and of course in the defensive zone here, leading to the overtime goal. So is Matthews, at fault for this goal happening? To some degree, yes, but if you really watch it and slow things down, and you really understand assignments and how these systems work, you'll see that it's more than Matthews being at fault. If anything, you could probably put more blame on the United States D pair of Adam Fox and Noah Hanifin. Matthews, I think, was almost trying to make up for their mistake, which led to McDavid getting open. But off the draw, McDavid ends up getting be able to push the puck forward, gets it towards the net, but misses. Comes up around the boards, and as that's coming up around the boards to Makar, you see Marner go to the corner and kind of stay put, because they kind of see it set play developing where Makar can rim it around to Marner and get it to the slot to McDavid. So as that happens, Fox should have stayed and covered Marner. He didn't. Hanifin and Fox both come to the net front and instead leaves the Marner in the corner wide open, which is fine. He's not a dangerous area, but still, if you take a look at Matthews, kind of sees that Fox doesn't get to Marner quick enough as he tries to make that pass to McDavid. Matthews says, oh crap, he's wide open, tries to get over. He makes the jump to try to get over to Marner and block things, and it doesn't happen. It gets through. McDavid's wide open. Game over. So to me, it's multiple. It's a full breakdown that led from one misassignment to another. So really, like I said, the defense there of Hanifin and Fox, with Fox being the more likely, because they should have been a switch off the draw there where Fox goes to cover Marner, Hanifin goes to the net front, which he did with Point, and then like I said, you've seen the set play kind of develop after that with Makar rimming it around to Marner, and then boom, you get McDavid in that slot bumper area that you would normally set up on a power play. Well, it wasn't a power play, but that's normally where you'd be trying to find that high danger chance, and it's right there. the best player in the world wide open in front. So it was a heck of a game. Nathan MacKinnon was tournament MVP in case you missed that. So that was a heck of a performance from him. Like I said, we're 349 days to the Olympic Games, which is going to be phenomenal as well. The ratings on TV, both Canada and the United States, were phenomenal. Highest, like it was one of the highest rated games ever. I believe this game outdid any regular NHL game in the last, I don't know how many years. Between the two countries, it was over 16 million people were watching this game, which is phenomenal. I believe it was around 9 million in the U.S. and over 6 million something in Canada. I believe Canada's ratings on Sportsnet peaked around 7.3 million. I think it's what the actual, it's 6.5 or whatever it was. That was the average, but it peaked at like 7.3 during the overtime. And then it was well over 9 in the U.S. So phenomenal tournament, far exceeded expectations, and there's going to be a lot to come from this as well. Obviously, like I said, the next rendition of this, besides the Olympics, will be the 2028 World Cup. But this, I don't think the NHL ever expected it to be this crazy of a performance. So at the end of the day, I don't know that this is going to be a tournament we ever see again. They'll go to the World Cup format with more nations involved. But if there's any reason they can't pull that off, they have this kind of gimmick in their back pocket they could go to if they had to replace an all-star game or something like that. Because regular all-star games are going to be pretty pathetic compared to this level of intense competition now that we've had this. So phenomenal tournament. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And I can't wait to do it again. On to some other news around the NHL. We got a couple of players on waivers yesterday, which was Tyson Barrie of the Calgary Flames and Dennis Cholowski of the Islanders. Both players cleared, and both can be reassigned. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Tyson Barrie in Calgary. Wouldn't be shocking if they come to, if he thinks he can find another opportunity for the rest of the year somewhere else, if maybe they do an unconditional waivers and terminate the contract upon mutually agreeing. I don't know if that's going to happen. I do wonder, though, because I think the purpose of this was to see if anybody would take him as is. But he's making over $1 million. Maybe if he re-signs somewhere for like $775, maybe that happens. I don't know, but for right now, both players have cleared. A couple of roster injury updates around the NHL, and then we're going to get into some Canuck news here. The Columbus Blue Jackets are getting a bunch of players back, including Boone Jenner, the captain, who hasn't played yet, and Kirill Marchenko, which is great news for them. Unfortunately, Kevin LeBanc and Owen Sillinger are both done for the year after having some serious injuries requiring surgery. We know Matthew Tkachuk is definitely going to miss time after this Four Nation tournament with Florida. We don't know how much time just yet, but Paul Maurice did comment saying that he wasn't sure. They're calling it day-to-day for right now, probably waiting for him to get back, which would have been sometime today, and to be reevaluated by Florida staff. Obviously, it looks like it might be a serious injury, so they're calling it day-to-day, but I have a feeling it's going to be longer term, but we'll have to wait and see where things go on that front. The Oilers have brought up Matt Savoy, and he is slated to make his NHL debut tomorrow. So, of course, that will be interesting to watch to see how he makes out. The Kraken today put Yanni Gourde on long-term injury reserve, but that's retroactive to January the 4th. So he's actually already eligible to come off. But, of course, he's not quite ready to yet. But whenever he is ready, they don't have to worry about the timeline. They did that so they could recall Cale Fleury. Obviously, looking at just creating some cap space here in the short term while he's recovering. Tampa Bay recalled Jesse Yellinen. So he's expected to get some playing time. In Ottawa, don't know exactly yet, but right now it's not looking promising that Shane Pinto or Josh Norris will be ready to play this weekend when the NHL action resumes for the Senators. So not quite sure exactly what kind of timelines they're looking at. They've already both been out for 2-3 weeks. It was about a week or more before the break. So the Sens aren't really saying a whole lot. So it's kind of difficult to say. I know a couple days ago, Travis Green said hopeful for Saturday, but neither one has shown up to practice. They're both still skating on their own. So don't know what's going to happen on that front yet. So stay tuned. Brady Tkachuk, I believe, is expected to return and play. I know he was dealing with some sort of injury from the Four Nations, but we haven't been led to believe that he's going to miss any time at this point. Lots of Canuck news. We're going to spend a few minutes here talking about the Canucks. One, they announced a big signing today. Goalie Kevin Lankinen, who, of course, was at the Four Nations with Team Finland, gets a 5-year extension at $4.5 million. Now, Lankinen's been, like I said, an unsung hero for that team this year because of the health of Thatcher Demko. They wouldn't be where they are without Lankinen. That's fair to say. They've dealt with Demko injuries now quite regularly, and I think it's kind of, writing on the wall here for the potential future of Demko with the club. You have to think. Now, 5-year deal at $4.5 million is not backup goaltending money. So I don't know what the plan is here. And, of course, they have Shelovs as well, who I know they have some confidence in. The first 2 years of this contract also has a full no move. So he's not going anywhere for sure, unless he wants to. And then the final 3 years, it changes from a full no move to a modified no trade, blocking 15 teams. So Demko has another year left on his deal at $5 million. So for next year, they'd have $9.5 million in goaltending, which is a lot. But if you look at some teams that are going to be, that are paying a starting goaltender, around $7-8 million, like looking at like your Hellebucks, your Swaymans, your Allmarks, Shesterkin, all those guys that are making the bigger money. And then, of course, on top of that, they have a backup of $1 million or so, right? It's not the most money by any means in the NHL in goaltending, but, you wonder the future of Demko. One more year, what's going to happen with him? Can they even trade him at this point? He's a great goaltender, but the health history is quite concerning. But it makes you wonder, with a 5-year commitment to Lankinen, with Shelovs waiting in the minors, I'm not sure when a Demko trade could happen. I would think the way this season has gone, probably not during the year before the deadline, but I would think maybe in the offseason. I wouldn't be shocked at all. There's already lots of chatter around the NHL about the future of Demko popping up after this signing was announced, because, like I said, it's not backup goaltending kind of money. They obviously have more faith and confidence in Lankinen's ability to not only play but to stay healthy. So we'll have to monitor that situation, and I suspect that the rumors surrounding Demko will probably heat up, especially into the offseason when teams have more flexibility. It's with 1 year, even if the Canucks had to consider some salary retention, do they do that? It's hard to say, but we'll have to follow that story, because I'm not sure Demko has a long future in Vancouver anymore. Speaking of players who may not have a long future, Brock Boeser. He's a player that's a pending unrestricted free agent, 27 years old, and he's reportedly looking for a long-term deal. And negotiations are kind of at a standstill. Reporters are saying that the team is well aware what he wants, and that he and his camp are well aware what they're willing to offer. And there seems to be a major gap between the two. We know Boeser's numbers are down a bit this year after hitting 40 goals the year before. But he's still a good goal scorer, still a productive player who's obviously spent a lot of time at the Canucks developing over the years. It would be a big blow for him to walk for nothing. But there's apparently some still internal debate, according to NHL insiders, of whether or not Boeser will be traded. They're going to kind of weighing up the options here as they approach the deadline, and there's not a lot of time left to make this decision. I would imagine there's still be one or two last-ditch efforts with a conversation with his agent to see if they can come to terms on a contract. But if that, falls through and is not happening, then they have to decide either they consider keeping him as their own rental, if it's looking like they're going to, make the playoffs. So right now, things are fairly promising for them. It doesn't mean it's a given, but they're in a good spot to get in, at least as a wildcard team. So that's promising. So do they keep Boeser as a rental, try to negotiate again after the season, and risk that you're going to lose him for nothing if that doesn't work out? Or do they take the plunge, find a trade, see if they can find some sort of hockey trade where he could maybe bring back something who can help them now that it's not such a fall off? Because obviously if you trade Brock Boeser for a couple of a first round pick and a prospect or whatever the return is, that's not going to help you today. It's not going to help you in this season's playoffs. They're already dealing with a situation as well with Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson are not going to be ready to play this weekend. Which kind of blows my mind with all the talk around Hughes going to Four Nations a few days ago in the U.S. after the McAvoy injury. Like Quinn Hughes, if he was not medically cleared for play and he still is going to miss time with the Canucks on the weekend, why in the hell was he ever considered to go to Four Nations? I don't get it. I understand his want and desire to be there. Of course he would want to be. He wants to represent his country. Players like him and that competitive nature live for those moments, but without being cleared yet, I just don't understand why it was such a big talking point and why it was something that the U.S. was jumping the gun on when he wasn't even medically ready to go. And of course, Pettersson, we know, didn't have a good tournament, was considered invisible, is taking a lot of flack. He's dealing apparently with some sort of injury, and he's considered day-to-day. I don't know. I mean, if the guy's hurt and is playing a role in his lack of production, then he needs to take some time and fix whatever it is, because it's not at a point where it's admirable to play that way anymore, because he's been underperforming for so long now that if he needs time, he needs to take it, because he's not helping him in the lineup without producing the way he can. So, like I said, lots of talk around Vancouver. Hughes and Pettersson not ready to play. That's going to be a big blow to them getting back into the NHL mix here, trying to hold down that wild card spot. You got a lot of question marks about the future of Brock Boeser and now Thatcher Demko after the Lankinen signing. So lots of storylines to follow with the Canucks here heading down the stretch towards the trade deadline. Now, some other talk as well. Apparently, there's still a lot of concern, doubt whether or not the future of Mikko Rantanen is with the Carolina Hurricanes. Lots of reports today, including Dave Pagnotta of thefourthperiod.com, suggesting that the Carolina Hurricanes could indeed trade Rantanen again here before the trade deadline. And it's not a given that he stays and rides out the season. Obviously, they gave up a good package to get him, and if he's not signed as we get closer to the deadline, and right now it seems like the holdup, the big reports, the news here is that there's some doubt that he wants to sign. Now, the Hurricanes, upon reports when they first made that trade and made the acquisition, the reports were that Rantanen was looking for some pretty big money between the cap going up and his strong performance over the last number of years. He was looking for a max deal in term with around, $13-14 million. And there was a lot of people that said that the Avalanche didn't want to go above McKinnon, who's making like 12 and change. And maybe that is their internal cap. I'm not sure. But the Canes, who typically don't spend that much on players, I mean, they have some big contracts, but nothing that large or anywhere close to it. The reports were that they were comfortable giving him what he wanted. So the fact that he's not signing, the only other reason would be that he doesn't see himself wanting to be there. So that's a big concern. You give up a big package, you're willing to pay big money, but if he doesn't want to take it, then that's tricky. Now, where could he go? I know there's a lot of people saying back to Colorado, and if you remember, like, you can't retain money and send them back like that quickly. So that can happen. Could he go back? Yes, but not as a retained salary contract. So we'll have to see what happens with Rantanen. But the strong belief around NHL insiders is that the next week to 10 days here, as we get closer to the trade deadline, if he's not going to sign, we're likely going to see another deal. I mean, if Carolina goes into the playoffs, and even if they had a great deep run, anything short of the Stanley Cup, it would be, a failure, especially if you're going to turn around and lose him, then you're going to take a step backwards after giving up Natchez and, what they gave up here to get him. So, I don't know. There's a lot of concern over his future there. We'll see. And the other thing is, could Jordan Binnington go from being a Canadian hero to soon being a trade piece for the St. Louis Blues? And some NHL executives and NHL insiders think that it's a very high probability that that's going to happen. Darren Dreger and Ray Ferrero talked about this on their podcast today. Dreg saying that one executive said they gave it a 99.9% chance that Doug Armstrong is likely going to move Binnington sometime in the near future. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen by the deadline. It could. If not, in the offseason. I mean, Binnington's contract doesn't have a ton of term left on it, but he is still signed. And he proved again that in the biggest moments, he's ready for the task, even though his regular play at times has been a little bit inconsistent. And ever since he's won the Stanley Cup, really, it's like you could argue that up until his performance last night, he hasn't really duplicated that, not to that level at least. He's been good. He's been, more than serviceable, but I don't know if he's been great. If you look at his numbers, like his save percentage year by year, there was a bit of a drop. There's some inconsistencies in his game, but the Canadian team and John Cooper were right to say that he's their guy in the big moments. He's got ice in his veins. Came through big time in overtime. The saves that guy was making, the 10-bell saves, was insane. Insane. He was by far more than a big reason why they won. If Binnington doesn't do what he does, McDavid never gets the chance to be the hero. It's just that simple. So clearly, Armstrong's a GM that's not afraid to be bold and aggressive. We know there's teams out there that need goaltending, and we know that Binnington's value, especially after the last few years, is never going to have been higher. The only time it would have been higher is right after he won the Stanley Cup. So selling high while the value is there makes a ton of sense on a team that's pretty dead set on retooling. We know they want to move some more players on the blue line. We know they want to move some more players in the forward core. That they're looking to shake things up between Schenn, Kyrou, Buchnevich. There's a good chance we see one of them go. Maybe another D. They obviously are confident in Joel Hofer, I think, ready to take over and have a chance to be the number one. So this is a player that would make a lot of sense. And, I have no inside information from any NHL insider suggesting that it's something that's being talked about. But I do know a guy who, after what we just saw at the Four Nations Face-Off tournament, would have a ton of confidence in him being his tendy going into the Stanley Cup playoffs with a chance to win a cup. And his name is Connor McDavid. Lots of smoke around the Oilers upgrading goaltending. Of course, they're going to be on a very tight cap situation. If Evander Kane comes back, I don't know if they could pull it off. But if there is going to be a player, that would lobby for Binnington to come to his team, you got to think that McDavid might be one of those guys after what he saw. I know there's been some frustration with inconsistencies in Stuart Skinner's game, obviously at times too. So, that's just a gut feeling. That's not a rumor. But the fact is, the rumor is that Jordan Binnington, according to Darren Dreger and an NHL executive he talked to, 99% sure that he's going to get traded. Now, it doesn't mean it's by the deadline. Like I said, teams are going to have a difficult time probably making that deal work. But if he's not traded by the deadline, I think he's going to be a big name to watch in the offseason for teams looking for a new starting goaltender, for sure. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.